I'm going to tell you about the day I almost lost everything. Not because of bad luck, not because of a fire or a flood, but because I opened my mouth to the wrong person. It was 1967. I'd been running my shoe shop for 15 years. Business was good. I'd saved up enough money to finally buy the building instead of renting it. My landlord, Mr. Castellano, was getting old and wanted to sell. We'd shaken hands on a price. I was 3 weeks away from owning my own building, and I made the mistake of telling someone. His name was Vincent Mell. Came into my shop every month for a shine. Nice enough guy, I thought. We'd talk about the Dodgers leaving Brooklyn, about the neighborhood changing, about this and that. I trusted him because I'd known him for years, because he seemed like a friend. So when he asked how things were going, I told him the truth. "Vinny," I said, "I'm buying the building. 3 weeks, it's mine." I was proud. I wanted to share the good news. 2 days later, Mr. Castellano called me. Someone had offered him 20% more than our agreed price. Cash, immediate closing. You want to guess who it was? Vincent Mell bought my building out from under me. And for the next 8 years, until he sold it to someone else, he was my landlord. He raised my rent twice, made my life difficult in small ways that added up. All because I couldn't keep my mouth shut about something that wasn't finished yet. That's when I learned there are things you should never tell anyone. Not because you're dishonest, not because you're secretive, but because words have power. And once they leave your mouth, you can't control where they go. My name is Salvatore Benedetto, and today I want to share with you 7 things I've learned to keep to myself. Lessons that took me decades and a lot of pain to understand. The first thing you should never tell anyone: how much money you have. This one seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people get it wrong. When I was young, money was something you didn't discuss. It was private, like your health or your marriage. You didn't brag about having it, and you didn't complain about not having it. That was just how things were. But I've watched that change over the years. People now talk about salaries, savings, investments, sometimes to strangers, sometimes on the internet for the whole world to see. And I've watched what happens afterward. A man I knew, Thomas Whitfield, worked at the shipyard, came into an inheritance in 1971. His aunt died and left him $30,000, a lot of money back then, enough to change his life. Thomas made the mistake of telling people, not everyone, but enough people. His co-workers, some neighbors, a few friends from church. Within a month, everyone had their hand out. His brother-in-law needed a loan for a business that never materialized. His cousin had medical bills. His neighbor's kid needed tuition. People he barely knew suddenly remembered how close they'd been. Thomas couldn't say no. He was a kind man, and he felt guilty for having something others didn't. By the end of the year, the inheritance was gone. Most of it never paid back. But here's the worst part. The people he gave money to, they resented him anyway because he couldn't give them more. Because he eventually had to say no, because knowing about his money changed how they saw him, and not in a good way. When you tell people how much you have, you change the relationship. If you have more than them, they feel either envious or entitled. If you have less, they either pity you or lose respect.
There's no version where knowing your finances makes things better. So here's my advice. Keep your money private. Your spouse needs to know. Your accountant needs to know. Maybe your children when the time is right. But your coworkers, your neighbors, your friends, they don't need to know. And knowing won't help anyone. If someone asks, and in my experience, people who ask directly are usually people you shouldn't tell. Just smile and change the subject. We're doing fine, thank you. How about those Yankees? Bank balance is nobody's business but your own. The second thing you should never tell anyone: your plans before they're finished. This is the lesson Vincent Mell taught me the hard way. When you have a plan, a big plan, something you're working toward, there's a temptation to share it. You're excited. You want validation. You want people to be happy for you. But here's what happens when you share a plan too early. First, you give other people the chance to interfere, like Vincent did to me, like countless others have done to people who couldn't keep quiet about their intentions. Second, you invite opinions you didn't ask for. Everyone suddenly has advice. Everyone suddenly knows better, and their doubt can infect your confidence.
Make you second-guess yourself, slow you down. Third, and this is the strange one, talking about your plans can actually make you less likely to achieve them. Scientists have studied this. When you tell people about your goals, your brain gets some of the same satisfaction it would get from actually achieving them. You feel good without doing the work, and then the motivation fades. I learned to keep my plans quiet until they were done, or at least until they were so far along that nobody could stop them. When I decided to marry Gloria, I didn't tell anyone until I had the ring in my pocket and a date set. Not because I was ashamed. I was proud, happier than I'd been in decades. But because I knew people would have opinions. I knew my son would object. I knew the neighborhood would talk. And I didn't want their noise in my head while I was making one of the most important decisions of my life. So here's my advice. Protect your plans with silence. Work on them quietly. Make them real. And only share them when they're strong enough to withstand whatever comes next. There's an old Italian saying, "Whoever speaks scatters. Whoever stays silent gathers." Gather your plans until they're ready. Then you can scatter all you want. The third thing you should never tell anyone: what you really think of your boss or anyone with power over you. I ran my own shop for 53 years, so I didn't have a boss. But I had landlords, I had suppliers, I had inspectors and tax collectors and neighborhood politicians who could make my life easy or hard, depending on how they felt about me. And I learned very quickly, you do not badmouth the people who have power over you. Not to anyone, not ever. Because words travel. A young man who worked for me in the 70s, I'll call him Danny. He hated one of our suppliers. And honestly, the supplier was difficult, overcharged, delivered late, acted like he was doing us a favor. Danny had every right to be frustrated. But Danny made the mistake of complaining about this supplier to another customer. Just venting, he thought, letting off steam. That customer happened to be the supplier's cousin. I lost that supplier. Had to find another one. Worse terms. Took me 6 months to sort it out. And Danny, I had to let him go. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't trust his judgment anymore. Here's the truth about complaining. It almost never helps, and it often hurts. If you have a problem with someone who has power over you, your boss, your landlord, anyone, either address it directly with them or keep it to yourself. Telling other people accomplishes nothing except spreading information that can come back to damage you. Your spouse can know. That's what marriage is for, having someone safe to talk to. But even then, be careful. Don't let venting become a habit. Don't let complaining become your personality. So here's my advice. Before you say something negative about anyone, ask yourself, what do I gain by saying this? What could I lose? Usually the answer is you gain nothing but momentary relief, and you could lose a lot. Keep it to yourself. Find another way to process the frustration. Go for a walk. Hit a punching bag. Make something with your hands. But don't let words be your release. Words have consequences that last longer than feelings. The fourth thing you should never tell anyone: your weaknesses and fears, unless you trust them completely. Now, I'm not saying you should never be vulnerable. Vulnerability is important. Opening up to people is how you build real relationships. But not everyone deserves your vulnerability, and giving it to the wrong person can destroy you. I had a friend, Mario Bianchi, knew him since we were teenagers, who made the mistake of confiding his deepest fear to someone he thought was a friend. Mario was terrified of public speaking, terrified, would shake, sweat, sometimes couldn't get words out at all. He told this to a colleague at work, looking for sympathy, maybe some advice. A year later, Mario was up for a promotion, and somehow the hiring committee knew all about his public speaking problem. Someone had told them. The promotion went to someone else. Mario spent the rest of his career stuck, passed over, because he trusted the wrong person with something private. Your fears and weaknesses are valuable information to the wrong people. In the hands of someone who loves you, there are opportunities for support and understanding. In the hands of someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart, they're weapons. So here's my advice. Be selective about who gets access to your inner world. Before you share something vulnerable, ask yourself, has this person earned my trust? Have they shown me over time that they can be trusted with sensitive information? Do they have my best interests at heart, even when it's inconvenient for them? If the answer is yes, share. Vulnerability builds intimacy. If the answer is no, or even maybe, keep it to yourself.
There are other ways to connect that don't require handing someone ammunition. The fifth thing you should never tell anyone: other people's secrets. This one isn't about protecting yourself. It's about being someone worth trusting. When someone tells you something in confidence, they're giving you a gift. They're saying, I trust you enough to show you something I don't show everyone. Please handle it carefully. And what you do with that gift says everything about who you are. I've known people who couldn't keep a secret for 5 minutes. You'd tell them something private, and by dinner it would be all over the neighborhood. They didn't mean harm, usually. They just liked having interesting information, like being the one who knew things. But here's what happened to those people. Eventually,
Nobody told them anything real anymore. Their relationships became shallow. They were included, but not trusted. Known, but not truly known. Because if you can't keep other people's secrets, nobody will give you their heart. My wife Gloria told me once, near the end of her life, that one of the things she loved most about me was that I knew how to be silent. She said, "In 40 years, you never told anyone anything I asked you to keep private, not even when you were angry at me, not even when it would have made you look good." She was right. I never did, because her trust was more important than any story I could tell. So, here's my advice. When someone tells you something in confidence, treat it like it doesn't exist. Don't hint at it, don't reference it, don't tell anyone. Not even people you trust. Not even if it seems harmless. Be a vault. Be the person everyone knows can keep a secret. It's one of the greatest gifts you can give, and one of the best ways to build relationships that actually mean something. The sixth thing you should never tell anyone: that you're thinking of leaving your job, your neighborhood, your relationship, before you're ready to go. This goes back to what I said about plans, but it's specific enough that it deserves its own attention. When you tell people you're thinking of leaving, everything changes immediately. Tell your employer you're thinking of quitting, and suddenly you're not getting the good projects. You're not being groomed for promotion. They're already looking for your replacement. Tell your neighbors you're thinking of moving, and suddenly you're an outsider. You're not part of the community anymore. You're someone with one foot out the door. Tell your partner you're thinking of leaving, and even if you stay, the relationship is damaged. They'll always wonder if you're about to go. The trust is broken. I knew a woman, Catherine O'Brien, lived 3 doors down, who told her husband she was thinking about divorce. Not that she wanted one, just that she was thinking about it. She was unhappy, wanted him to pay attention, thought it would be a wake-up call. It worked. He paid attention, but he never trusted her again. Every argument after that, you could see it in his eyes. Is this the time she leaves? The marriage limped on for another 10 years, but the ease was gone. The security was gone. If Catherine had either left or committed to staying, things might have been different. But by announcing her uncertainty, she poisoned the well. So, here's my advice. Don't announce your exit until you're walking through the door. If you're unhappy at work, either fix it or find another job first. If you're unhappy in your neighborhood, either make peace with it or start packing. If you're unhappy in your relationship, either work on it with your whole heart or end it cleanly. But don't hover in the doorway. Don't threaten to leave as a negotiating tactic. Don't use the possibility of your absence as a weapon. It rarely works the way you hope, and it always changes things in ways you can't undo. The seventh thing you should never tell anyone: family business. Every family has problems, conflicts, failures, secrets, shame. That's normal. That's human. No family is perfect. But what happens in your family should stay in your family. I've seen so many people make this mistake. They're upset with a sibling, so they tell the neighbors. They're angry at their parents, so they tell their coworkers. They're frustrated with their spouse, so they vent to anyone who will listen. And here's what happens. People remember your argument with your brother might be resolved in 2 weeks, but the neighbor you complain to, they still think your brother is terrible. They still look at him differently. They've formed an opinion based on your worst moment, and they'll carry that opinion forever. When my son didn't tell, some of them caused damage I couldn't undo. Some of them taught me lessons I'm still carrying decades later. Vincent Mell buying my building. Mario Bianchi losing his promotion. Catherine O'Brien's broken marriage. My own son's silence. All of it, every bit of it could have been avoided with a simple skill.